we supposed to teach our children the principles of the Ten Commandments? Absolutely. Notice verse 11. Then you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the midst of heaven, with darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. You only heard a voice. So he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, the 10 commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. So notice that God gives the commandments, and he says to Israel, these commandments are going to teach you to fear me, and you are to teach these commandments to your children so that your children will also fear me. By the way, do you know that the fear of the Lord involves in our way of treating other people? It changes rather the way that we treat other people. It makes us loving and kind towards the weak and the less fortunate. By the way, the main principle behind the 10 Commandments is love. Isn't that right? Notice what we find in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 14, and then we're going to jump to verse 32. Notice how the fear of the Lord, when we have the fear of God in our hearts, it's going to affect the way that we treat our neighbor. And of course, the essence of God's law, the essence of the 10 Commandments is love. Notice, you shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind. And then what does it say? Shall fear your God. I am the Lord. Now notice verse 32. You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man. And then it says, and fear your God. I am the Lord. Are you catching how the fear of God in our lives affects the way we treat other people? Notice Leviticus 25, and we'll read verse 17 and verse 36 and also verse 43. It says there, therefore you shall not oppress one another, but you shall fear your God. Notice that when we fear God, we don't oppress other people. For I am the Lord your God. Also, notice what he says. Take no usury. You know what usury is? It's an exorbitant amount of interest. It's taking advantage of people financially. And so it says, take no usury or interest from him, but fear your God, that your brother may live with you. And notice Leviticus 25 and verse 43. Leviticus 25 and verse 43 says, you shall not rule over him with rigor. That is, so over your neighbor. You shall not rule over him with rigor, but you shall fear your God. So in other words, having the fear of God in our lives leads us to keep God's law, and it leads us to love our fellow human beings. Now let's read a few other verses that show how important it is when we fear God to obey him and do his will. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Notice how God opens up his heart to Israel. He says, oh, that they had such a heart in them that they would fear me. Now notice, what does fear lead to? That they would fear me and what? And always keep my commandments. All my commandments. That it might be well with them and with their children forever. What does it mean to fear God? It means always to keep what? All of God's commandments according to this passage.